They were howling loud. Sounded like they were just maybe 100 yards up in the woods.
Fifteen, 20 minutes later, I could hear something walking on the gravel. Next thing you know, I got onto the porch. I hear the screen door open.
Camping deep in the wilderness can feel peaceful until something starts watching back. One question: what stalks the shadows? Eyewitnesses have come face to face with towering human-like figures, eerie sounds, and movements that defy explanation. Each story pushes the limits of belief, revealing a presence that watches, waits, and refuses to be seen. Yet its mark lingers everywhere. Moments where experienced adults heard responses, found impossible evidence, and realized they were no longer alone. With massive, unseen creatures, every rustle, every shadow could be closer than you think. D-Max UK's latest expedition took the crew deep into Kentucky, guided by a local expert Charles to a ridgeline unlike any other. Surrounded by steep hills and wedged between a busy highway and a popular state park, the location offered little in the way of natural cover. Still, as they surveyed the area, an unsettling feeling lingered. Was this really just an ordinary stretch of land, or had it been touched by something more?
The Eyeshine video, of course, was filmed at night, so we wouldn't know what the location would look like.
Good to see ya. Good to see you.
When we met Chuck, he took us to the exact spot, which was a ridgeline with a steep hill on each side. This isn't what I would consider ideal habitat for any animal to take cover. You have a busy highway on one side, and on the other side is this popular state park.
This was the spot, the place where it all unfolded. Charles explained that he had been standing on a rock, filming the area as dusk settled over the ridgeline. Then, unexpectedly, Eyeshine appeared, glinting through the underbrush. The team held their ground for several tense minutes, only to witness something even more unnerving. Pam spotted a figure emerging from behind her. Feeling the weight of an unseen presence, the group had no choice but to retreat, leaving the ridge with a lingering sense of unease.
This is where it happened. Where were you standing?
I was standing right here on the rock. When we came up here, it was right before dark. And I was filming this area here. And when I turned around, there was Eyeshine coming from right through here. We stood there for maybe 5 minutes. This right after that's when Pam seen the one come up and behind her, and we kind of felt threatened by that. So
in the footage, two glowing eyes stared back, unusually large and widely spaced. Some suggested it might be an owl, but the proportions seemed far too extreme for any known bird. To uncover the truth, the team decided to reconstruct the scene. Armed with two red LED flashlights, Bobo took on the role of the mysterious figure, moving through the shadows as the crew measured angles and distances, every step intensifying the question of what had truly been lurking just out of sight.
The two eyes in the video seem to be rather large and far apart. Now, the most likely culprit, if this is a misidentification, is an owl. And I think that these eyes would be too big and too far apart to be an owl. However, it's only by doing a recreation and measuring a couple things are we going to be able to figure that out.
So about here?
Using two red LED flashlights, Bobo stepped in to play the role of the Sasquatch once again.
Something watched them from the shadows. Two glowing eyes just beyond the crooked branch, tension creeping into his voice. Bobo stepped forward with a measuring tape. The team determined to find out exactly how high those eyes had been. Inch by inch, he climbed, stretching toward the gray area on the tree. Step after step, the height became clear, 8 feet 9 inches right at eye level. The revelation left the crew frozen. Whatever had been watching wasn't just mysterious, it was enormous.
The eyes are right around the end of that crooked branch, right there.
How's that?
No, the eyes have to be even higher up, Bobo.
I mean, I could reach up 8 feet.
You can't reach up as high as we need you to go, so why don't you use the measuring tape, and we can try to determine the eye level with those. Okay, Bobo, measure up to about that gray area on the tree if you see where that is.
So that's about the bottom of my foot there. I'm getting pretty high up
A
there.
little bit more, maybe another inch, right in there.
Wow, that would be about 8'8", 8'9".
Yeah, 8'9", right.
Look at that crooked branch in the footage, and now notice where those eyes appear. Way above their heads, almost impossibly high. Even from the ground, the height is shocking. Some say it could be an owl, but think carefully. Where would an owl even perch to create that effect? To make things stranger, a branch that might have supported it 3 years ago is gone today. The idea of a Sasquatch standing that close seems even less likely. There would have to be some trace of a face, some sign of presence, and yet, those eyes were real and they were watching. The question hangs in the air. What could possibly reach that high, unseen, and so unnervingly still?
Now in the original video, look at the crooked branch compared where the eyes are.
Whoa.
See how far up above your head that is?
I'm tiny.
You're like a little over half its size.
It's just amazing it's that high in the air.
Because it's an owl on a branch.
Where would the owl be sitting?
I believe there's a branch that 3 years later is no longer there. Is far more probable and likely than a Sasquatch was standing that close to you and you couldn't see some mark of the face.
The team kept their eyes on the shadows, aware that something was moving, something large. The air was thick with tension as a deep sound echoed nearby, unmistakably heavy and powerful. Breaking the silence, but the doubt lingered. Hesitant, they decided to test the response, making small noises to see if anything would react. Moments later, the unmistakable impression of something massive became clear. The team exchanged tense glances. Whatever was out there, it was big, and it was close.
That just sounded so big.
This is a good time for a howl.
Yeah, I think we should make some more noises.
Will you do it?
Sure.
Hey folks, we did hear something big up here, so Clip's gonna do a scream.
Copy that.
Come on, Kentucky Squatch.
No one knew exactly what had just moved in the shadows. The team stayed on high alert, scanning the dark woods with every step, turning back repeatedly to check the direction of the movement. In these forests, nothing is obvious. Sasquatches are masters of subtlety. Every snap, every rustle, every faint crackle demanded investigation, because sooner or later, one of those ordinary sounds could reveal the extraordinary.
That was, but Matt made a right decision at that point. He said, you know what, maybe there's something trailing us. We need to be on extra high guard. We need to keep turning around and therming into the woods that direction, because you never know. Sasquatches are not obvious creatures. They are so subtle. You have to investigate every little crackle and pop in the woods to eliminate all possibilities. And one of those times, it's going to turn out to be a Sasquatch.
And when it does, there's no turning back. The question of what or who was lurking in those Kentucky woods remains unanswered. But one thing is certain: Charles and the team came face to face with something enormous, something that watched from the shadows, and they have no intention of ever venturing back to challenge it again. 12 years ago, a short swamp clip was posted by Josh Highcliffe with the title, "I think I saw a skunk ape. Please help." The footage shows a large figure crouched in a Mississippi swamp, tearing huge pieces of wood from a tree and appearing to eat the white inner core. It never notices Josh filming from only a short distance away. When it finally rises, its height and shape immediately raise questions. Thinker revisits the clip and focuses on one critical detail: proportions. When the creature stands, its knees bend clearly, and its torso appears unusually long. To test what it is, or isn't, he applies his image-based species identification system, a method he developed by comparing limb ratios across species.
I think I saw a skunk ape. Please help. Have a watch. There is something sitting out there in the swamp, breaking out huge chunks out of a tree. Here we go. Now here, I've stabilized that footage and zoomed in some, and we can see right there, it's pulled out a big, like possibly chunk of the white meat of that tree.
He imports a human 3D skeleton, poses and scales it to match the swamp figure, then marks measurement bars, hip to knee to ankle, torso length, shoulder to elbow, and elbow to wrist. When the bars are placed side by side in a PDNA chart, the creature shows a pattern where torso, arms, and legs are nearly equal in length.
It's going to have body proportions that look like this. A big, long torso, which we see right there, sitting on top of short little front and rear legs. If this thing is a dude in a monkey suit, which it's not.
He compares these bars to a bear's proportions. They do not match. He then compares them to human proportions. Again, completely different. The swamp figure is neither bear nor human. Next, he brings in measurements from the Patterson-Gimlin Patty figure, which he analyzed using the same method. When Patty's proportional bars overlay the swamp creatures, the match is striking. The body structure aligns, identical proportional signatures across torso, limbs, and joint spacing.
Thing is a dude in a monkey suit, which it's not. It's going to have body proportions just the opposite of a bear. It's going to have relatively short torso and arms sitting on top of these big, giant, long human legs of ours, and it's the same whether we're 4'8" or 8'8". These are your proportions, my proportions, and the same proportions of every normal, typical adult human on the planet, male or female.
He addresses the common objection that the footage could show a man in a suit. For that to be true, the suit would require an unnaturally long torso, fully mobile shoulders, and a perfectly functional head aligned with the body, all features visible in the video. He argues that such a design would require a sophisticated, expensive build that nobody was discussing or producing when the clip first surfaced. Finally, he responds to the idea of measurement error. To make the creature fit human proportions, his measurements would need to be wrong by nearly 30%, which the footage does not support.
So I would have to have mismeasured by about that much. That's how far off I would have had to been on his legs, and any reasonable person could see that I couldn't have possibly been 30% wrong measuring its legs or torso or arms. So wrapping up, me personally, I have made 2 videos discussing this video, and there have been countless others over the past 14 years, and it just seems unimaginable that anybody could have ever just simply measured this thing's body proportions and then compared it to human or bears or any other larger primates so that we could finally know 100%.
Thinker Thunker concludes that based on proportional analysis, the swamp figure and Paddy share the same non-human structure. To him, they appear to belong to the same species. Something neither bear nor human, yet matching the proportions of the historic Patterson creature. The Cabin in the Woods channel delves into the most remote and haunting locations, uncovering stories that linger long after the cameras stop rolling. In August 2013, a couple vacationing on Vancouver Island took a secluded back road leading toward the tiny village of Port Renfrew. Surrounded on both sides by thick forest and with barely a sign of civilization, the narrow road seemed to disappear into the wilderness. During their drive, they paused by a quiet roadside creek, a seemingly ordinary moment that would soon unfold into an encounter far from ordinary, a tale the channel would later bring vividly to light.
So as I said, in August 2013, this couple was on vacation on Vancouver Island. They were driving this rather obscure back road toward a tiny hamlet called Port Renfrew. During our trip, my wife and daughter and I drove this same road, and we also visited Port Renfrew. And I can tell you that this particular road is small and narrow and lined with dense forest on either side. and really not much else. Zero signs of civilization.
The couple, no strangers to wandering deep into the wilderness, decided to follow a nearly dry creek bed, hoping it would guide them safely through the dense forest. Barely a couple hundred feet in, the sudden sound of snapping branches ahead made them pause. Through the shadows, a towering figure appeared, upright, swaying slightly, with a cone-shaped head and broad, imposing shoulders. It was a presence unlike anything they had encountered, leaving them frozen between awe and fear as they tried to comprehend what they were seeing.
They had walked only about 200 feet into the tree line along this creek bed when they suddenly heard branches breaking up ahead. They looked 75 to 100 feet further into the forest in the direction they were going, and that's when they saw this large, upright figure. The figure was standing bipedally, they said, and swaying back and forth. The couple said it looked like it had a cone-shaped head and broad, bulky shoulders.
The couple insisted that what they were seeing couldn't be a bear. Wendy, walking slightly ahead, suddenly stopped and gestured back to her partner, drawing his gaze toward a shape 75 to 100 feet away. At first glance, they thought it might be an animal, but its stance was unmistakably upright, moving on two legs. Even from that distance, its head had an unusual, almost conical shape, an appearance that left the couple uneasy, realizing they were witnessing something entirely out of the ordinary.
They stressed that in their opinion, this was not a bear.
Wendy was ahead of me, and she turns around and she points. And I looked up into the distance, way in the distance, it was about 75 to 100 feet ahead of us. You could see something in the distance. At first we thought it was a bear, but it seemed more bipedal. So it seemed more upright. It appeared to have kind of a conish.
The couple could just make out the shape of its head, tapered and sloping, with a broad, almost flat forehead that suggested a surprising intelligence. Its back looked thick and powerful, and one massive shoulder jutted into view, the arm disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Every feature hinted at something extraordinary, a creature far beyond anything they had ever expected to encounter.
Examine and scrub back and forth through these areas, you can see that sloping, cone-shaped head and the rather flat, somewhat horizontal forehead, very reminiscent of gorilla cranium shapes. We've also got what looks like a thickly muscled back and what really strongly appears to be a shoulder with the upper portion of what would be the creature's right arm hanging down out of view.
The creature's face bore a striking resemblance to Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film. Todd Gatewood's restoration, made solely from the original footage, revealed uncanny similarities in facial features, posture, and the way it seemed to glance back. The image carried a chilling sense, as if the forest had quietly replayed a moment from decades ago.
But that face strongly resembles the face of Patty, the subject of the famous Patterson-Gimlin film, particularly in this enhanced frame done by photo archivist Todd Gatewood. This is an undoctored frame, simply enhanced using the original visual information captured on Roger Patterson's camera. No AI was used in this restoration by Todd Gatewood. And look at the similarities, not just in facial features, but in overall shape, in impression, and in the fact that both Patty and the subject of this 2013 footage from Port Renfrew appear to be turning their full bodies.
There was a faint, musty odor in the air, subtle, but noticeable. At first, it might have been mistaken for a bear, but its size and shape quickly suggested otherwise. Even from a distance, it appeared massive, with broad shoulders that hinted at a strength far beyond any ordinary animal.
There was actually kind of a musty smell, wasn't there? Mm-hmm. It wasn't strong. I would say it was kind of subtle. I don't know if bears stink. I mean, somebody says, oh, it was a black bear. I don't think it was a black bear. I've seen black bears before.
No, it wasn't black.
It didn't. It seemed quite big. And she's looking through the camera and zooming in on this thing. I'm seeing it from a distance. But it appeared to be quite big, and it seemed to have shoulders on it. That's what it looked like to me.
The identity of the figure remained a complete mystery. Reactions to the footage were split. Some dismissed it outright, while others were captivated. The discussion it sparked only deepened the intrigue. leaving viewers debating what had truly been captured. Although they emerged from the forest unharmed, the question of what they saw remains unanswered. Was it merely an unusual animal, or something far more extraordinary watching from the shadows? On Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, viewers dive into the life of Peter Byrne, whose fascination with Bigfoot spans over 6 decades. Born in Ireland, Byrne's journey took him far from home, driven by a passion for uncovering the unknown. In the 1950s, a connection with a pioneering Texan researcher set him on a path from North American forests to the Himalayas, establishing him as one of the most enduring figures in Bigfoot research.
1956, with correspondence with a Texan whose name was Tom Slick, and he was very interested in projecting a full-time research in the Himalaya. I am Irish. I grew up in Ireland.
In the jagged Himalayas, Byrne encountered Tom Slick, a fearless Texan obsessed with the Yeti. Together, they pursued fleeting shadows and ancient legends across frozen ridges and hidden valleys for 3 years.
Was trekking in the Himalaya, a small expedition to look for the Yeti, and made contact with this Texan called Tom Slick, this oil man. He became a very good friend. And he wanted to do a full-time search for the Yeti in the Himalaya, 3 years.
Upon returning, Slick suggested Byrne cross the ocean to America to seek the equally elusive Bigfoot. Byrne had never been to the States, but the call of untamed forests and hidden mysteries was irresistible.
So to make a long story short, I signed up with him. I spent 3 years in the Himalaya looking for the Yeti. When I came down from that, he invited me to come to the States. He said, you spent enough time up there, come to the States and look for Bigfoot. I have to say, I laughed. I'd never been to the States before. To me, America was skyscrapers and freeways. But I came over here and got into the search for Bigfoot with him.
In the jagged Himalayas, Byrne encountered Tom Slick, a fearless Texan obsessed with the Yeti. Together, they pursued fleeting shadows and ancient legends across frozen ridges and hidden valleys for 3 years. Upon returning, Slick suggested Byrne cross the ocean to America to seek the equally elusive Bigfoot.
When I was big game hunting, partly in North India, but mostly in southern Nepal, the jungles of southern Nepal, which run for 500 miles east to west, 50 miles north to south, there were elephant everywhere, lots of elephant. We did not shoot elephant. So that's when I first got into Bigfoot. And that was 1956, 57, 58, 59 was the Yeti, and then Bigfoot, January 1960, starting here.
Byrne had never been to the States, but the call of untamed forests and hidden mysteries was irresistible. After his Himalayan expeditions, Peter Byrne set up a Bigfoot research hub in northern Oregon, a modest trailer beside a local restaurant that quickly became a magnet for stories. Visitors shared sightings, curious and cautious, while Byrne documented the most credible accounts.
In that part of Asia, the elephant is one of the Hindu gods, a holy animal. Nobody ever shot an elephant. The other animal which was protected was the rhino, which was kind of the preserves of the royal family of Nepal. So those 2 animals we didn't shoot, but everything else was trophies. My clients would contact me and tell me what they wanted, usually tiger, and then a leopard, and a buffalo, and then a bison, and so on. And I would set up the arrangement before they came.
When the project moved to Hood River, the work continued, turning casual encounters into a trove of mysterious, first-hand reports. Even a small outpost, it seemed, could unlock extraordinary secrets. Across decades of searching, he had found only 6 sets of footprints, and never the creature itself. Yet through countless interviews with credible witnesses, he gathered a rich collection of encounters. For him, the proof lay in the stories, not just the sightings.
That were credible out of that, and those are in my book. I recorded them. So that was the purpose of the information center. It worked quite well. Well, certain things I learned as a big game hunter were useful, and one was sign reading on the ground, so that when I got back into Bigfooting, we'd see something, I could look at it. I learned tracking and sign reading.
Witnesses reported a colossal figure, over 7 feet tall, dark brown, moving with an uncanny upright stride. It stopped suddenly, locked eyes on them, and for a heartbeat, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, as silently as it appeared, it turned and vanished into the shadows. In the world of Bigfoot research, he welcomed skeptics, yet few truly understood the field.
So the thing walked up to about 200 yards away, stopped, looked at them, turned and walked away. They said it was 7 feet tall at least, 400 to 450 pounds, enormous, dark brown in color, swinging its arms, walking upright, and when it stopped like this with its hands out, looked at them, turned and walked away. So the sighting is extremely unusual in that the time of the day, the people, we believe these things are nocturnal and lie up during the day. So my theory there is that noise of the machinery got it up and moving, and it didn't know where the noise is coming from, which happens with wild animals very often. They can't pinpoint sound.
Those who studied carefully sometimes became convinced the legend was real. Over decades, only a handful of scientists accepted it, but Byron remained at the edge of doubt and belief, chasing a mystery that refused to be dismissed. After decades of searching, footprints tracked, and witnesses interviewed, could Bigfoot be closer than we think? And what would you do if you came face to face with it? Flash of beauty. Bigfoot revealed. Returns to a remote cabin where the forest feels alive with unexplained activity. Residents report noises, fleeting shapes, and moments that leave neighbors shaken. What once seemed isolated has escalated into a hot zone of activity, hinting at a presence that observes, waits, and reveals itself in the most unsettling ways.
We have had stuff happen outside of the cabin 24/7, and it kind of comes and goes. Like we're in a category right now where it's a hot zone of activity happening here. Like last night.
Yeah.
Was stuff going on. The neighbors were freaking out, and mainly with just noises, but everybody's kind of seen something.
Heard something.
What was the first thing you remembered as far as like the trickster activity happening?
A secluded cabin has long been haunted by an unseen presence. Rich, a longtime resident, lives under its shadow. His daughter once glimpsed it, and the family has felt the brush charged with unseen energy. Knocks and objects moving in the night have left them terrified. Though Rich has never seen it himself, he knows something watches and waits in the darkness.
History that there's been like a visual sighting by his daughter. They were bluff charged through the brush before they cleared it out in that area down below. That he's heard like knocks and sounds of things like getting hit or smacked or moved, I think, but I don't think he himself had a visual sighting out here. The previous people that lived in the cabin that we're in, which is, you know, other family members, would have the walls smacked by something in the middle of the night that freaked them out.
The next day, a small triangular piece of gravel drew attention. At first, it seemed ordinary, but Rich found it again, neatly resting atop a log, strangely cleaned and deliberately placed. The gesture hinted at a presence watching, leaving subtle marks that defy explanation.
And then I think it was the next day, I look outside and there's a piece of gravel that's somewhat triangular shaped, but it wasn't, I was like, I remember it being more perfect, and maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was, and I was about to like throw it. And then Rich found that rock down there sitting on top of a log, and it was cleaned off.
It began with small signs. Objects slightly moved, subtle disturbances. But soon, the sounds grew impossible to ignore. Close by, deliberate single knocks echoed against the wood, sharp and distinct, like a heavy bat swinging. Each strike carried unmistakable weight, as if something unseen was announcing its presence with careful precision.
And we should say that there is a rock quarry not too far from us, and periodically you got good old boys going down there unloading clips. But that wasn't this. These were like really close wood knocks, and they were singles. There wasn't like, you know, a pistol or a shot. It was like a single wood knock, like a Louisville Slugger wood knock.
Among the strangest signs was a dark imprint on the rear cabin wall. Resembling a human hand pressed and burned into the wood, it lingered, a silent witness to the inexplicable presence around the cabin. Suddenly, movement caught their eyes along the road. A shadow shifted in the underbrush, low and cautious, barely revealing itself. Moments later, it slipped across the path and vanished, leaving a sense that something unseen was silently stalking the area.
There it is.
What?
I think. Yep, there it's moving.
What?
Yeah, there it is. It's on the right side of the road. You see it?
Yeah.
It crossed the road, and then remember there's that section where it's like, it's on, crouching behind kind of like the fern, or not the fern, but the bushes on the right side.
The final shot.
Yeah, I think that happened after, because it crossed, and then you were like, is it still there? And then we saw it.
Faint, piercing cries drifted from deep in the thick woods. At times resembling a human scream, they carried an unmistakable otherworldly quality, forcing the group to stop and listen in tense silence. As they edged into the forest, the sound abruptly vanished. 20 minutes of piercing wails had closed in on them, only to disappear as they approached. Peering through the underbrush, all that remained was silence, and a creeping sense that something had intentionally slipped away, just out of reach. Finally, the sounds drifted away, as if the forest itself revealed, then withdrew. Whispers lingered, eerily articulate, yet nothing human stirred. Every rustle, every call hinted at a presence watching just beyond sight, leaving the air thick with tension.
Different animal sounds, and then it gave itself up by just going off into...
I don't know what my favorite is. Mine has to either be the little girl or the talking, because we know there's no little girl in the woods.
After knocks in the night, fleeting shadows, strange cries, and marks that defy explanation, the forest seems to breathe with a presence just beyond sight. But what force has claimed these woods, and who, or what, truly watches from the darkness? The Travel Channel ventured deep into the wilderness where curiosity meets the unknown. Viewers watched as the team asked the crowd a simple yet chilling question. Had anyone ever encountered a Sasquatch? Slowly, hands began to rise, a silent acknowledgement that something mysterious was out there, something that had left its mark on more than just the forest.
So satisfy our curiosity, please. If you think you have encountered a Sasquatch at some point, please put your hands nice and high in the air.
Camille Delorme went out fishing, the quiet of the woods pressing in from every side. She knew the area was alive with deer, and maybe something far stranger. Her eyes drifted across the tree line, scanning for movement, when she suddenly froze. Two figures emerged, one tall, standing perfectly still beside a massive willow bush, the other lurking just behind it, parting the branches as if studying her. A shiver ran down her spine as the realization sank in. They weren't deer. The forest seemed to hold its breath, every rustle amplified in the heavy silence. Camille couldn't tear her eyes away, trapped by the gaze of something she couldn't explain.
My name is Camille Delorme. We were fishing. I knew that there were a lot of deer and elk, and I was kind of scanning the tree line looking. There were two. There was a tall one standing next to a big willow bush, and the other one was right next to it, and it had the bush parted. It was like this.
Dion Kroom never expected his routine drive to turn into something unforgettable, As he cruised down the highway on the way out hunting, a figure appeared at the edge of the road. Something completely out of place. The moment it noticed the vehicle, it moved with impossible speed, clearing the road in just 3 steps. Shocked, Dion turned to his brother asking if they had seen it too. Both nodded, eyes wide, barely able to speak. For a heartbeat, the world seemed frozen, as if whatever had appeared had slipped back into the shadows, but left a memory that refused to fade.
My name is Dion Kroom. Was on our way out hunting, driving down the highway. And you could just see something standing out of the ordinary. Once it noticed us, he clears the road in 3 steps. Told my brother and my wife, "Did you guys see that?" And they're like, "Yeah."
Candy Usazero had barely set foot on the south end of the marsh when the night seemed to shift around her. Strange, eerie noises pierced the stillness, sending a chill down her spine. She and her friend were out elk hunting when she suddenly told her son to turn on the spotlight, and that's when it appeared. A massive figure looming behind a tree. Her body shook uncontrollably. Even now, the memory still terrifies her. Whatever it was had emerged from the shadows, a chilling reminder that some things in the dark are not meant to be seen.
Hello, my name's Candy Usazero. My oldest son, we went out elk hunting out here on the south end of the marsh. Kept hearing this weird noise. Told my son, turn on the spotlight. I could see this huge figure behind a tree. And I was shaking. I'm shaking right now because it scared the out of me.
Whispers of Yamsey Mountain kept surfacing at the town hall meeting. The sacred mountain on the reservation was a place no one dared to enter. Rumors of strange, unexplainable occurrences kept people away. But for the team, the more mysterious, the better. Before speaking to a single witness, they decided to head straight into the heart of it, bigfooting on Yamsey Mountain, determined to uncover whatever secrets the shadows were hiding.
One name came up over and over again at town hall meeting, and that is Yamsey Mountain. It's a sacred mountain on the reservation where no one goes. You're not supposed to go there because weird things happen there. Well, we're all about the weird, and we are here to Bigfoot. So before we speak to any witnesses at all, we are going to go Bigfooting tonight at Yamsey Mountain to see what we can discover.
The trail stretched out perfectly before them, a strange blend of habitats teeming with hidden life. Then came the sound. A sharp knock, sudden and deliberate. At first, it seemed like a branch snapping, but the forest felt alive. A second movement followed, subtle yet deliberate, just beyond sight, as if something or someone was tracking their every step.
This is such perfect terrain.
Nice mixture of habitats. Did you hear that,
Whoa,
Bobs?
is that a branch falling or just I only heard one knock.
It sounded like a branch breaking.
The team crept through the forest, eyes scanning the ground and shadows alike. Something's been watching across here. Deep tracks marked the earth, sharp and deliberate, visible to anyone with a headlamp. Elk and mule deer crisscrossed the trail, an ungulate highway, but no human footprints anywhere. The absence of people felt wrong, almost deliberate, and a shiver ran down their spines. Every crack of a branch and rustle of leaves made them jump, as if the forest itself was alive, waiting. After all these encounters, figures in the shadows, impossible movements, and tracks that lead nowhere, the question remains, what really walks these forests when no one is looking? Could it be a creature we've never fully understood, or something far stranger, hiding just beyond the edge of our perception? Salish Sasquatch presents verified sightings and first-hand encounters of Sasquatch across the Pacific Northwest. In this video, we present a carefully curated list of our most notable guests and memorable encounters, highlighting stories that have resonated most with our audience. We begin with Dean Parker of the Macau tribe in Nebe, Washington, whose insights provide a unique perspective on the region's long-standing Sasquatch traditions.
Welcome to Salish Sasquatch, where we share evidence as well as encounters. I've been wanting to put together this video for a while now. This video is a compilation of our very favorite guests, our favorite encounters, channel favorites, and all of that wrapped into one video. So these are in no particular order, but we will start with Dean Parker of the Macau tribe in Nebe, Washington.
Dean Parker, known as Papado of Nebe, recalls a night that still chills him to this day. Driving back to Skokomish through the dark, empty stretch of Humpt, something appeared on the road. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving with an eerie, unnatural grace. It took 3 deliberate steps across the road and then vanished, swallowed by the darkness, leaving only a haunting silence behind.
All right, my name is Dean Parker. I'm from New Bay, and a lot of people call me Papado. And I'm going to tell you about my encounter with the Sasquatches. My first one was driving back to Skokomish, and we was going through tulips there, and it was during the nighttime, and I come up on the road, and I told Lametta, I said, "See that?" "Yes." "You know what that is?" "Yes, it's a Sasquatch," and it took about 3 steps across the road, and it was...
What began as an ordinary moment quickly turned unsettling. From somewhere in the distance, a sharp whistling sound broke the silence. It didn't fade. It repeated, growing closer each time, deliberate, almost directed. With the wind pressing against his face, the realization set in that whatever was out there was no longer far away. The air felt wrong, and instinct warned that the situation was about to take a dangerous turn.
Then I heard this whistling noise out there in the distance. This is not going to be good. And I kept on hearing whistle, getting a little bit closer, whistling at me, and I knew they were really getting... I was walking.
That moment became one of his most unforgettable experiences, an encounter with not one, but 2 Sasquatches, leaving a lasting impression that would stay with him long after the night ended.
Oh, that was my experience with
Long before he knew the legends of Sasquatch, Johnny grew up in Missouri, a childhood untouched by television and the tales it might have told. When his family moved to Washington State, the dense forests and rugged wilderness became the backdrop for a childhood adventure unlike any other. On one of his first backpacking trips, a dozen kids and a single adult, the stage was unknowingly set for encounters that would change everything he thought he knew about the world around him.
I grew up in Missouri, and I didn't have TV. We didn't have TV when I was a kid, so I didn't know anything about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And my family moved to Washington State, and one of the first trips I did as a kid was I went on a backpacking trip with, I think there were 12 of us kids and 1 adult, and
while trekking through the rugged trails of Mount Three Fingers in the Boulder River wilderness, an eerie sound shattered the quiet. Something slammed against a tree with a force that no human could match, rattling the forest with rapid, thunderous blows. Even those who had grown up among these woods felt a shiver run down their spines. The group froze, hearts pounding, as the hair on their arms and the back of their necks prickled with an instinctive, chilling fear.
we were hiking on Mount Three Fingers in the Boulder River wilderness, and something in the woods pounded on a tree right next to us, and it was inhumanly loud sound. No person could have done it, and I think it knocked the number of people in our group on the tree. It was boom, 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 real fast, real loud. And I grew up, playing in the woods, and I never heard anything like that. And, everybody there, we just froze.
Further up the road, two campers emerged, their headlights cutting through the darkness as they made their way down the hill. But something, or someone, was following them. A tall, unnervingly slender figure appeared on the road, moving with an almost unnatural grace. When he pointed it out to his friend, they brushed it off, assuming it was just the campers. But his eyes stayed locked on the figure as it came fully into view, impossible to ignore, and the forest seemed to hold its breath.
So they were coming, the two people that had camped further up the road, they came walking down the hill, they had their headlights on, and they were about over here on my left when I saw a tall figure following them on the road. It was very slender, but very tall. And I remember saying, hey, I see something up there. And my buddy who was over there, he said, oh yeah, that's the, you know, so-and-so, that's those people that are friends. And I was like, no, they're over here. And everyone just kind of ignored me. But I watched this figure walk into view.
Sonia approached the encounter with logic, carefully testing every explanation. A bear didn't make sense, as none of the usual warning signs were present, and it didn't feel like a deer, another animal, or even a person in the woods. One final possibility crossed her mind, one she resisted at first: Sasquatch. That unsettling realization, paired with the location and behavior she witnessed, drew her into a mystery she could no longer ignore.
Through and find a provisional hypothesis for what it is you're experiencing. And so I'm like, okay, well, if it was a bear, I would expect these things to occur. You know, bears are big enough to break branches. Bears would slap the ground with their forepaws, but I would have expected to hear huffing or jaw popping. Yeah. Black bears almost never try to intimidate people, and if they do, they make really obvious bluff charges. You probably would see a bear. I didn't think it was a deer, but I said, okay, well, if it was a deer, here's what I'd expect. Was it a wild cat? Was it a creepy person? And then my final one that I didn't want to even put down was it a squawk?
Sarah Brown is a witness whose account stands out for its clarity and detail. During her encounter, she observed a Sasquatch from a distance that allowed her to study its form, coloration, and movement with unusual precision. Her careful observations and the drawing she later created offer a rare and compelling perspective that adds depth to her experience and credibility to her account.
Until Friday, May 10th, which was actually the day of the Aurora Borealis, I saw a Sasquatch that was standing across a field that was about 200 yards away from us. And what I saw was very two-toned in color. It was similar to like an orangutan red. An orangutan red all over here.
The sighting lasted only seconds. As she spoke, her attention drifted for just a moment, long enough for something across the field to catch her eye. She looked up, locked onto the figure, and then, just as suddenly, it was gone. Like so many Sasquatch encounters, it vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but the lingering question of what had truly been there. On Small Town Monsters, it all starts with Stacy Hostetler, who never expected his quiet walk in the woods to turn into the moment that changed everything. It forced him into the mystery he's been chasing ever since. He had never been interested in Bigfoot, not even slightly. The thought barely ever crossed his mind. But that changed on March 17th, 2009. That morning, he set out for a simple day hike in a local Ohio park, something he did all the time.
One of the things I tell everybody, if they go out into the forest and they shoot video footage, like especially back then it was VHS tapes. Now it's an SD card. A lot easier to store these than what you did VHS. But I had shelf upon shelf upon shelf of VHS tapes. It was August 2nd of '92. I was out there by myself. I was shooting what they call B-roll footage. I wanted to show, this was before I actually brought anybody in from the Pacific Northwest to show them that we had the woods, the food, water, shelter for a big animal like this to exist.
The air was a crisp 41 degrees, the sky unusually bright and blue for an Ohio morning. Nothing fell out of the ordinary. But as he followed that random trail deeper into the woods, something was waiting, something that would rewrite everything he thought he knew about the wilderness forever. The moment he stepped off the trail, everything changed. He took just 2 steps into the woodline, 2, and something deep in the ravine erupted with a roar of crashing leaves and snapping branches.
Shooting footage of what we now call Sasquatch Lake. I didn't like the position I was at. Turn around, take 4 or 5 steps. I believe it's 4 steps. You can tell by the bounces in the video camera. The camera, I left it running. So it's on my right shoulder. It's facing in that direction. I'm facing in this direction. No knowledge of what's walking down the road up there 100 yards away. I stopped momentarily, turned back around, shoot more footage of the lake, and put the tape on the shelf.
Whatever it wasn't small, and it definitely wasn't normal. He'd walked that trail 100 times without incident, but the moment he eased off the path and into the woodline, the forest responded. So loud, so powerful, it stopped him cold.
Through the process of elimination, we've kind of discovered how tall it is. It was light in color. I wouldn't say it was white, but it looks close to white. It was very quick. It wasn't around for long, a couple of seconds on video, and never seen it again. I wouldn't consider it a sighting because I did not see it with my eyes, but it was there. When Monster Quest came to Ohio and did an episode on the Ohio Grassman, they had a fella in Minnesota take a look at it.
Out of nowhere, 3 loud whistles hit him from behind. Not birds. This sounded human. And 10 seconds later, another set of identical whistles rose from the ravine. 2 perfect sets. 2 different places. Something out there was communicating the same 3 whistles climbed out of the ravine below, matching perfectly, note for note.
I got to this one point in the trail, and instead of going all the way down to the edge of the ridge, where this trail zigzagged and went down in a ravine, I decided to go off the trail and step into the wood line. The leaves were real crunchy. I took 2 steps off into the wood line, and as soon as I hit my second step, going into the wood line, something way down in the ravine just took off from left to right. I have never heard anything in the woods make that kind of sound that loud.
It wasn't an animal call, it was a message. Whatever made those sounds, I wasn't alone, and it wasn't hiding anymore. The sound hit him so hard it stunned him. His vision washed out white for a split second, and when his eyes snapped back into focus, he realized he wasn't alone. Between 2 trees, something massive froze mid-stride, staring straight at him. He didn't believe in Bigfoot, didn't give the idea any credit at all. But in that moment, with this thing locked on him, there was only one word his mind could form.
Various pop culture iterations of the creature, later known as the Yeti, sealed the deal, especially after Bigfoot burst on the scene and it became a handy visual reference. Bigfoot has black or brown hair, while the abominable snowman has white. Oddly enough, not only does that stance ignore the documented reports, it would seem that those same reports reveal the opposite to be true. The Himalayan Yeti is typically described as having dark or reddish-brown fur.
Bigfoot. For nearly 15 seconds, they held each other's gaze, silent, unmoving, and way too close. He'd never been this scared in the woods. Never. There, frozen between 2 trees, stood something enormous. 3.5 to 4 feet at the shoulders, easily 8 feet tall, and completely white from head to toe. It didn't move, it didn't breathe loudly, just watched it.
In the same vicinity that had also spotted a white creature, and the lady did report that the hair was down in front of its eyes, which makes us think it was the same creature.
Well, I think it could be old. There's a report of a white Bigfoot in the Willoughby area, Willoughby Hills, near the Chagrin River. It's been seen several times. I suppose you could get an albino version of one, but I don't see any problem with a white Bigfoot. I mean, if it's regular hair and they're similar to us in genetics.
Time slowed, the forest around him fading into a heavy, silent stillness. His mind raced for one thought, one desperate escape. Get back to the truck, before it decides he's prey. The worst part? It was standing directly between him and his truck. To escape, he had to climb the trail, up out of the ravine, never taking his eyes off that towering white figure. Every step uphill felt like a gamble.
And especially seen at night, and like under a moonlit sky, you might see a dirty blonde Bigfoot walking around and think, oh, it's a white-colored Bigfoot. Maybe, maybe not. But that's one potential, that's something that I think parallels this conversation, is that, if you've got the black-haired and the brown and the cinnamon, why not a dirty blonde leading up to even a silver or a white-haired colored Bigfoot?
Like turning his back might be the last mistake he ever made. He kept glancing over his left shoulder, locked on it the entire time. And the moment he reached level ground, it moved. It bolted with explosive speed. 2 massive steps, then gone. Vanished into the trees as if it had never been there at all. That was the last glimpse he ever got of the creature. The creature disappeared into the shadows, leaving only questions behind. Could something that big really exist? Right here, in our own backyards? The video comes from the YouTube channel Travel Channel, following the Expedition Bigfoot team. Bryce Johnson, Dr. Mireya Mayer, Russell Acord, and Ronnie LeBlanc as they search one of America's most active Bigfoot hotspots. The team expects another long night of scanning terrain, but what happens instead becomes one of the most compelling and unnerving encounters they've ever documented. The moment the cameras roll, Ronnie spots something hiding behind a tree. Only a sliver is visible, but enough to make him freeze. Before he can get a clearer view, his thermal camera dies, leaving him relying only on audio. Strange movement breaks the brush in front of him. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Something big is circling.
It looks like it's hiding directly behind the tree. There's only a small portion revealed now. Ronnie, what's going on down there?
I'm hearing some sounds. I'm trying to get eyes on it. You seen something in front?
When the thermal boots back up, the silhouette returns. This time, it stands up. Dr. Mireya sees movement too, only she sees it without a heat signature, as if the figure is absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Russell orders her away from the water and toward the tree line. Whatever is out there is moving quietly, intentionally, almost as if tracking her position. Moments later, she spots it again, this time clearly. A massive, upright figure walks across the forest. Then another appears to its left, and another. At least 4 large heat signatures move through the trees, occasionally peeking from behind trunks as if monitoring her. She reports that they aren't behaving like any known wildlife. Russell agrees. He has never recorded thermal signatures this large.
There's multiple creatures walking over there.
Using the high-powered thermal binoculars, Mireya has spotted what appears to be multiple creatures moving just 100 yards away.
Mireya for Russ.
Mireya, go ahead. This is Russ.
Russ, there are multiple huge heat signatures directly across from me. They're walking across the forest and it almost looks like they're poking their heads around the tree.
Things escalate when one of the heat signatures begins changing shape. What starts as an upright figure turns faint, then shrinks, then collapses into a single glowing orb before disappearing completely. Mireya watches it dissolve in real time, leaving the team stunned. Reports of orbs accompanying Bigfoot sightings suddenly feel far less myth than possibility. Then comes a whistle. Long, clear, not belonging to any animal in the region. The team freezes. Similar whistles echo around them, as if multiple sources are calling from different points in the forest. That's when Russell spots something even more undeniable. Footprints.
Look at that. That is a footprint.
Russell Acord has just discovered what appears to be large human-like footprints.
Whoa, look at this. Do you see that? Oh, look at the size of that. That's a really big print. It's like the heel hit the ground.
Huge, human-like tracks pressed deep into the soil. Toe splay is defined. Heel-to-toe motion is perfect. Another appears beside it. Then a full series. One track measures 18 inches. Another nearly 16. The stride is long, powerful, and headed straight for the riverbank, exactly where Mireya saw the silhouettes earlier. One print even shows where something climbed out of the water before stepping onto the sandbar. To the team, this isn't just evidence, it's a trail. A path pointing toward a creature that seems aware of them, interested in them, and intelligent enough to stay just out of reach.
Oh my God.
These are fresh from last night. Whoa. If you look in the water behind it, looks like an impression in the water back here. Ooh. This thing literally appears to have come out of the water and onto this bank. These toes are crystal clear. Oh my God. Look at where we are right now. What are the odds of somebody walking through here with bare feet? Right. And look just above it. Right here was the showstopper. Now look how big this thing is. It's a little hard to make out, but the details are there.
They have always felt one step behind. Tonight, they begin to wonder whether Bigfoot is letting them get just close enough. Some encounters leave behind more than footprints. They leave behind a 911 recording you can barely stand to replay. In audio shared on the YouTube channel Cephosaurus, a gold prospector describes a night in his converted cargo trailer that shook him so badly he still hates listening to the tape. He turned a standard pull-behind cargo trailer into a small camper. Windows on both sides. Jack stands at the rear, still hitched to his truck. The trailer was about 8 feet tall.
Okay, I'm going to go over here. This window here, I'd say a little bit more than half of that's 8 foot tall. I can't reach that. I'm on my tippy toes now and I can't. Okay. I'm using this as a comparison. The window is on this side. The window I had in my camper or in my trailer was a little bit smaller than this. It was about like that.
He parked deep in a remote area near a river, far from houses, lights, or passing traffic. By 9 p.m., he was asleep. Around 10 p.m., he was on the phone with 911, whispering, panicking, as something massive began rocking the trailer violently in the dark. Outside, his dog went wild, barking and growling at something just beyond the thin walls. Inside, the man pounded on the trailer from within, trying to get whatever was out there to stop shaking it.
And he's really into the Bigfoot thing now too. So
when the deputy sheriffs got here, they seen that print like that there, and he was like, "Holy!"
They just started to basically interrogate me, and I was in my socks, but I got out. I took my shoes off. I was asleep in the bed. I ain't gonna sleep with my shoes on.
To the dispatcher, he kept repeating that something was outside his trailer, walking around, growling, slamming into the walls. Then came the detail that terrified him most: the eyes. His side windows were small and set high in the trailer wall, the bottom edge already well above his head. As he watched, he saw a single eye glide past the window pane. Then, another pass in the opposite direction. The spread between the eyes was wider than he could reach, even stretching his fingers apart on a full-size camper window later, in daylight.
So, when this thing was going back and forth, it was growling through that window. Not on this camper, but on my trailer, okay? But there was a handprint. The handprint was up here about right over here. I'm not talking from the window because my window is actually right in here. But on the camper trailer that I had, the cargo trailer, one handprint was clear up to the top of the 8 foot tall, right at the edge with the fingers over, and the other one was clear the hell over here.
Whatever was looking in was tall enough that its eyes were level with a window nearly 8 feet off the ground. When he checked the trailer later, he found handprints. One palm was at the very top edge of the trailer wall, fingers curling over. The other was spread far away between the two side windows. He insists no one could have reached both spots without a ladder, and he had no ladder with him. The next piece of evidence was the physical displacement of the trailer. Both rear jack stands had been knocked over. The dirt and grass were shoved thickly to one side of one wheel and the opposite side of the other, as if the entire trailer had been repeatedly pushed back and forth, sliding several feet over the ground. Deputies eventually arrived. They first treated him as a possible hoaxer, checking his hands and bare feet for mud. Then, one of them found a 17-inch footprint near the side of the trailer that had been shaken. Another officer ran through the thorny brush along the bike path and came back cut up and breathless, admitting he couldn't explain what was out there.
The footprint that I got from there was a 17-inch print, I think is from a teenage, you can't say juvenile, teenage, maybe 18, 19-year-old Bigfoot.
They found that print that was right on the side of the trailer that was being shook from the big one. Anyhow, they had me take my socks off, I looked at my hands, make sure there wasn't no mud on my bare feet.
For the witness, that night ended with flashing lights and patrol cars. But the recording, the towering handprints, the shifted trailer, and the 17-inch track suggests something far larger was circling his little camper in the dark. The team from YouTube channel Bigfoot Society entered Oregon's forested mountain roads, expecting a slow start to festival week, but activity appeared almost immediately. The area Ronnie and Dwayne call her spot stretched all the way to the creek, a place where they believe a dominant female Bigfoot regularly moves. Within minutes, they showed scuffed hillsides, strange impressions, and rocks placed deliberately on stumps.
I know it's been there for quite a while since, then, but it just doesn't make no sense to me at all. But then, I got to looking and it almost looks like, they were like using that rock to hit this rock or something.
Right.
But I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just, trying to figure it out.
This wasn't new to the locals. They'd been hearing vocalizations, tree breaks, and monkey chatter here for years.
It wasn't actually, below the other one. It was just further back down the hill further, so it looked like it was, eyes lower to the ground. And then, so he went further sideways, and then looked back, and then he seen the third one also. But they're it's like a frequent area.
This is interesting right here. I don't know if that just fell apart or is that a normal occurrence? Or if it's burned, that it'll fall apart like that?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
One of the first striking finds was a set of fresh footprints, deep heel marks, clear toe shapes, and tracks measuring around 18 inches. Beside them lay another, wide, heavy, and unmistakably shaped like a bare human foot, but far too large.
My daughter found the one and then just found another one by the stump, and they were both the same footprint. Sir, okay, look at this one. Toe.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. Look how big that is.
Yeah, careful.
No,
I don't think they're probably not gonna cast it though, right?
But they just put this here.
Oh, yeah, they put it around it, okay.
The team inspected impressions across the hillside, seeing old tracks, new tracks, and subtle changes in the earth indicating movement they had missed. As they climbed toward the sighting area, they found twisted off trees, not snapped by wind, but torqued deliberately.
I'm gonna back up a little bit. So you have the left tree that's going to the left, and then you have this right tree that's going to the right, but then look right here, down on the ground. What are the chances that it's like one that way and then two coming this way laid across?
Yeah, I don't know.
And on either side are snapped off, and like, what do you think that's like
There's another break.
8 feet up, maybe 12 feet up?
I'm 5'9".
Okay.
I'm 5'9". What do you think?
That's easily 12.
Several were broken 8 to 12 feet up, arranged like signals, one pointing left, another pointing right, and two logs laid across each other in an X. Dwayne explained that these formations show up everywhere the creatures cross into camp. It was here that the group recounted a terrifying moment from earlier in the week. 2 loud roars, each closer than the last, that pushed them out of the area. "We felt it in our chests," one said. That second roar was a warning. Later, they reached a baiting site where Chad had left apples, an orange, and a banana. The apples remained untouched. The orange had fallen to the ground. But the banana was peeled cleanly, eaten, and its peel placed aside. No claw rips, no scattered debris, just a peeled fruit, something no bear could do.
All right, so
The apples are gone.
yeah, so I'm
No,
gonna.
there's one.
Okay, so it's on the ground. So, don't what?
The banana.
Oh,
Okay, so this is where, so Chad set these out, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Chad
so
and Ronnie put these on there.
Chad and Ronnie set these out. Next day we have the orange still there.
That orange is on the ground, but the
Got
banana's
an
been
orange
ate.
there. We've got a banana that has been, it's been peeled or eaten.
And they left the oranges and the apple alone. Not only that, it broke the stick off.
Don't.
Even more unsettling, the branch the apple had hung from was snapped off deliberately, yet the apple itself remained untouched. To Dwayne and Ronnie, the meaning was clear. They wanted the banana. Around the same spot, they discovered another wide footprint in the soil, likely belonging to the same large individual.
Yeah, but they don't leave peelings.
Well, why is it peeled?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I've never seen one peeled.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness.
I've never seen one peeled.
They left the apple. All they did was break the branch on the tree where it was stuck on and left the apple and peeled the banana.
You think that's a sign?
I don't know. I don't know. So whoever said they don't like bananas are probably wrong.
Yeah.
As evening came, Ronnie began to play guitar. Music had stirred activity before, and again, from across the ridge came a faint roar, then another, this one sharper, almost a scream. The group froze. The sound was distant, yet powerful enough to vibrate the air between the trees.
Yeah.
Be natural,
We'll be cool.
yourself,
We'll be cool.
be genuine, be silly or whatever, and let them deal with
I have
it.
an idea. You play the song, and when we're done, we'll figure out what we're doing.
Good idea.
Okay, yeah, because go with the flow. Just with it. Do your own thing. Don't stop. Don't stop because they're doing something.
Then why'd you stop playing the song? Because they were doing
Because you guys are talking.
No.
It's got to have a reason
She tells people I'm
to live or to pass away. There's a time, there's a season.
By night's end, they agreed on one thing. These mountains weren't just active, they were inhabited. And whoever was out there had been watching them long before they arrived. The YouTube channel. The half-inch wrench crew headed into the forests of Washington with one goal: document real signs of Sasquatch activity. They set out expecting a routine road trip. What followed became one of their most disturbing investigations. The evidence surfaced almost immediately. On a sloped dirt bank, they found impressions that ruled out people, wildlife, and coincidence. The placement was deliberate. The depth was wrong. And whatever made them didn't hesitate. The crew spotted what looked like a bare footprint and a handprint pressed into the side of the hill. The ground around it showed no signs of human activity. It immediately set the tone. Whatever left that mark wasn't small.
There's footprints on the side of that.
There is.
Hang on, I gotta turn this down.
No way.
Wrong way.
That's a damn footprint. That's and a handprint.
Look how what?
Coming down. It's coming down the hill. How big it is.
You can't see it on here. I gotta.
As the investigation continued, the evidence began to repeat itself. Oversized tracks appeared along disturbed ground. Impressions pressed so flat they didn't behave like normal footprints. Some were so large that stepping into them felt instinctively wrong. Nearby, they found clusters of bones. Birds and small animals placed along a single trail. The remains were fresh, but the pattern didn't match any known predator behavior. They assumed the bunker was empty. It wasn't. The moment one team member stepped inside with night vision active, a low, human-like sound came from the darkness.
But we did not go to sleep.
No, because
these noises started happening.
they were howling, man. They were howling loud. Like, it was loud howls. And they were just, they sounded like they were just maybe 100 yards up in the woods. And then you'd hear one up the other hill, and they were all around us. I had my hog set up with me.
Yeah.
So I had my 6.5 Grendel and my thermal scope.
He froze. Then he heard it again, a slow, deliberate whisper, close enough to feel intentional. He bolted out seconds later, shaking, and refused to re-enter. Whatever made that sound knew he was there.
Go in there. What is it?
We don't know.
I think it's a bunker tonight.
Locals later confirmed similar encounters. A woman hiking in Montana described seeing a dark, naked, human-shaped figure run across her path in silence. Another group camping in Oklahoma recalled a night surrounded by powerful howls, close enough to feel through the truck bed. Different states, different stories, but the same description of a tall, fast, silent figure moving where no person should be. The crew also met forestry professionals who had recently investigated massive nest-like structures high in the Washington mountains. Built like giant beaver dams, only miles from any water source, they contained hair samples that didn't match the local wildlife database.
So he's always talking to people, and you hear a lot of Sasquatch sightings, especially him. So we're going to take the Bronco up a mountain over here. The expedition won't make it, but this has got rear diff lock, front diff lock. It's got crawler mode. This is going to get us up there just fine. So we're going up there because someone reported to him at the restaurant that there was some whooping and wood knocks. It has just like happened like here in the last week or so. So we're going to go up there and do some scouting around.
By the end of the trip, the crew hadn't filmed Sasquatch directly, but they did capture footprints, bone clusters, unexplained sounds, and a growing realization shared by everyone who's walked these mountains. Something is out here, and it lets you find only what it wants you to see. After 10 cases, the evidence is unsettling. Prints too deep for humans, structures too complex for animals, behavior too calculated for coincidence. Different witnesses, different regions, yet identical traits. Territorial giants, silent watchers, beings that appear, vanish, and leave questions behind. If each case stands alone, it's a mystery. But if they connect, then what exactly is sharing these forests with us? And how much longer can it stay hidden?